Hey there, I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and looks like we got a breather. Well, Lil Uzi Vert as well, but it's Billboard Breakdown.
I don't remember.
The big benefit of weeks like this is that after a pretty busy week, it's nice to exhale. Yes, it's post-album bomb, but none of it left the charts courtesy of Tyler the Creator having all of the staying power, and that leaves me breathing a little bit easier. Lil Uzi Vert may have charted a couple of songs, but they can be managed, especially as I don't think any of them are really gonna last. But before we get into all of that, our top 10, where for yet another week, a bar song Tipsy by Shaboozey is holding the top spot at number 1. Although I'd say it's probably shakier than ever before. Sales might be good, but it handily lost the top spot on streaming, and radio is in decline. It's gonna challenge for the number 1 record against Old Town Road, but there is no guarantee it's gonna beat it. And that's at least partially because Die With A Smile by Lady Gaga and Bruno Mars is trying to make that push at number 2, with excellent streaming and strong sales, and really trying to cut into that radio margin. Although it's an open question whether or not it can beat the margins at the very end. And Birds of a Feather by Billie Eilish at number 3, well, it had kind of an odd week, with radio seeing a second wind and at least decent boost on streaming, and that was enough to keep it above Espresso by Sabrina Carpenter, currently at number 4, which spent the week kind of wavering on the radio, with streaming only barely making up some of that balance. Now, of course, that means Lose Control by Teddy Swims actually gained a spot to number 5. The song's just not going anywhere, courtesy of a shockingly stable radio and streaming week. And that was enough to pull up over I Had Some Help by Post Malone featuring Morgan Wallen, currently at number 6. And it's an outright free fall, lost position on radio and streaming. Now this allows for an opening for Taste by Sabrina Carpenter at number 7, where a lot of tangible label muscle has finally been placed behind her radio in order to match good streaming, and that's a little bit different than, and I still can't believe this crap is here, Beautiful Things by Benson Boone re-entering the top 10 at number 8, where the radio might be dumping it, but it's got enough momentum to hold up, where especially when Love Somebody by Morgan Wallen's tumbling back to number 9, seeing losses on streaming and just not really able to make up the traction and the difference on the radio. Of course, some of this is all positional when it comes to Tyler the Creator's album bomb necessarily falling back, which is nice to see that, as I predicted, Sticky featuring Glorilla, Sexy Red, and Lil Wayne made enough major gains to snag that number 10 spot. Thanks streaming dominance for this one, because really I've got no faith the radio will know how to handle this at all. Maybe look back to the mid-2000s, find your old playbooks from then. Now that naturally takes us to our losers and dropouts, in which we really did not get that many at all. No Tyler the Creator song fell out of the Hot 100 this week. The biggest dropouts were Whiskey Whiskey by Moneybagg Yo and Morgan Wallen, and Yell by Fuerza Regida. I'm not exactly complaining about either of them. And while Tyler the Creator had losses, they weren't exactly insurmountable for the album bomb. Noid fell to 37, Judge Judy at 52, Take Your Mask Off with Daniel Caesar and LaToya Williams at 59, Hey Jane at 61, I Killed You at 65, Tomorrow at 73, and I Hope You Find Your Way Home at 93. Outside those, well, Disease by Lady Gaga just collapsed off the debut to 58, as did Heart of a Woman by Summer Walker at 68, but outside of those, the only other losers were Mamushi by Megan Thee Stallion and Yuka Chiba wearing out its welcome at 79, and Hold On by Glorilla just not catching fire at 96, and that's a real shame. That being said, we did have a couple returns and gains, probably less of both than you might think, with the former group only really having South of France by Future at 80, Liar by Jelly Roll at 89, and Lonely Road by Machine Gun Kelly and Jelly Roll at 97. Hey, I didn't say it was all good news here. Now, I would struggle to say there was a real pattern that shows out with their gains, so let's consider the exceptions to any rebound from last week quickly. That's So True by Gracie Abrams, continuing up to 13. She also had Close to You rise to 75. Like Him by Tyler the Creator and Lola Young rising up the debut to 29. And I'm Gonna Love You by Cody Johnson and Carrie Underwood rising to 66. Now, the rest are all rebounds. Let's work our way from the bottom up. From Tito Double P, we had Dos Dias with Peso Pluma at 51, and El Locoron at 74. Beautiful As You by Thomas Rhett at 63. Help Me by Real Boston Richie at 56. Dancing in the Flames by The Weeknd at 53. Pour Me a Drink by Post Malone and Blake Shelton at 50. Wind Up Missing You by Tucker Wetmore at 47. Pink Pony Club by Chappell Roan at 46. And High Road by Co Wetzel and Jesse Murph at 45. And to cover off the rest here, Who by Jimin at 44. I Can Do It With a Broken Heart by Taylor Swift at 43. You Look Like You Love Me by Ella Langley and Riley Green at 40. Pink Skies by Zach Bryan at 38. The Door by Teddy Swims at 35. I love the song, It's Stuck Around. It's really grown on me this year. And Stargazing by Miles Smith, still around at 24. But again, it's a quiet week for our new arrivals, thank God. So let's start off with number 100, Brokey by Latto.
You ain't no fuck with no boss, bitch. I turned you out. You won't catch me in no shark boots. I burnt them out. Bitch, you gotta wait till their birthday to go out of town. Brokey. Yeah, I talk a lot of shit. He like who you think you is. Nigga, not your bitch.
Okay, let's start off with the assertion that the word brokey, it's just awful. It's aesthetically ugly, even before we place it in any context of flexing. So much so that apparently Latto actually got in hot water for titling the song this way, as some people saw it as mocking hardworking poor people. Now, I have no idea why she saw a backlash for this in comparison with, I don't know, any number of hundreds of rappers over the course of decades now. So much so that she announced a challenge for folks to film their work and it could get featured in her music video. But I don't know, maybe it's a sign of the cultural climate kind of changing? Or I don't know, maybe it's because the song is crap. Which it is. The brittle trap percussion around the bells and the hollowed out synths that sound paradoxically cheap. The bargain barrel flexing where you get the impression that Latto is probably getting more money through fucking around than any competence in hip hop. That incredibly obnoxious hook where she repeats that ugly as hell word. But really it's the self-satisfied non-effort that really turns me off, because it's so transparently shallow and classless and dull. Congratulations, you got your biggest songs off of Dr. Luke and a Jungkook collab. I don't think you've got the grace and goodwill to mock the girls who make traveling on a special occasion for their birthday. That's the vast majority of your audience. Not everyone has money. And as I've said about flex songs for over a decade now, if you're gonna do it, you want it to be aspirational for folks to get there, not mocking those who can't. It's the same problem as the dickheads who say stealing your girl. So yeah, challenge is not going to save this, and I still think Latto remains bottom tier when it comes to mainstream women in rap. Pass. Number 82, We Good by Lil Uzi Vert.
They said I was lost. They thought I was a dead guy. I was on and off. Smallest cars, the red eye. Smoking gas, don't cough. But he gave me the red eye.
Alright, we only got 3 Uzi songs this week. Apparently we were all blessed by the reality that nobody seems to like Eternal Take 2 on the rationale of it being atrocious. But at least we were lucky enough to not get the truly abysmal songs charting. Even still, this is probably the worst of the songs that did chart as the album opener. The bass is clipping the edges of those trap snares. The synths feel slathered all over the back of the mix without conveying much of a lead melody in order to match Uzi's delivery over the single verse that we get. But the real problem here, I think, is Uzi, who just refuses to stay on beat to save their life as they try to find something close to a stable flow as they brag about doing nitrous and then stealing your girl, and as I try to assure their mom about the new contract, which of course they read. Now granted, given the effects of all these drugs, I'm not sure how well understood it might have been, or why you're bragging about reading a contract. That should be the basics in your industry. But really, that's giving this more thought and consideration than it arguably deserves. This feels empty, not even in the fun way. Can't recommend it. Number 77, São Paulo by The Weeknd and Anitta. The only other song this week not from Lil Uzi Vert, and for all intents and purposes, it screams like a Hail Mary. Anything to assure that The Weeknd will get some sort of charting momentum for that upcoming album, of which I'm now seriously worried. This time it's a venture into Brazilian funk with Anitta's distorted voice functioning as something close to a chopped up sample, and this time interpolating the Brazilian funk pioneer Tati Quebeca Barraco. And honestly, I think on a textural level, it gets kinda close to working. If it's the ragged edges of those analog synths and that heavier whirring knock of percussion that eventually chops into something with a little bit more shouts and texture as the klaxons go off after the beat switch. You know, in terms of pure production as a dance floor cut, I think this can work. I actually kind of dig it. But look, The Weeknd's not adding much to this at all, where he finds a girl who is desensitized to all the money. She only wants that rush of good sex, and he's trying to prostrate himself before her and deliver. Although the line, "kill me softly like you want me euthanized," that's, well, certainly a choice. Honestly, it feels more like it's running on texture and momentum than that strong individual melodic hook. And let's be clear, that's making up for a lot, but we're also now 3 singles in. I don't think any of them have matched The Weeknd at his best, and while I think this is decent, the fact that it's only just decent, that's a real problem. I'm gonna say it. Number 54, Light Year Practice by Lil Uzi Vert. Alright, second Uzi song, and one of 2 on the album I think are vaguely passable, and really that's more because it sounds like there's a vestige of actual polish where it could fit alongside something from that first Eternal Atake project. The buzzy, saturated synths that build alongside the better balanced trap percussion, and the echoing bass that actually kind of swallows up some of the mix but has some knock. And Uzi's actually pretty sharp and engaged in his flows, especially the double time on that final verse. Granted, given what happens on the rest of the project, that nicerous that they're bragging about here is a really bad sign, but the rest of the track is flexing, fucking, saying that the girl is always lesser in the relationship, reminiscing on Disney shows. Look, maybe it's just me, but the intended sugar rush of a song like this is not landing or feeling all that interesting. I've heard this from Uzi plenty of times before, what do you know, on the prequel to this album. And the kids that like this, I think they might deserve better. Passable, I guess, at best. And finally, number 48, Chill Bay by Lil Uzi Vert.
Don't do it to me, don't do it to me, baby. Don't do it to me, don't do it to me. Please don't do the most right now. If I hit you up, please don't go right now. Don't do it to me, don't do it to me, baby. Don't do it to me, don't do it to me.
Okay, the reason this probably charted so high probably comes down to 2 things. It got a music video, and with the Chipmunk sample behind the sing-song hook and the Sandy trap percussion, and you normally know how the Chipmunk vocals normally work for me, it's probably one of the more refined songs that we got here, even if the auto-tune warble around the hook feels a bit overcompressed, but at least it has a hook. But let's be real, Uzi turning back their personality to make a pop-leaning song that someone like Kid Laroi could do, that's not a good sign, especially for this sort of vague yearning for a girl to pay them attention, who apparently is with someone else, and where Uzi doesn't even seem that engaged by this person, as by the end of the first verse, they call it a chore, and they seem self-aware enough that this girl doesn't even really seem to like them. I mean, I would call it kind of revealing of their struggle to find someone despite all the hoes that they've been bragging about and running through, but that would also demand my interest in a lot of Lil Uzi Vert's relationship woes, and I'm not at all convinced by anything here. Yeah, it's catchy, it'll probably work if it's shipped to radio properly, but I can't say it's special or good. But yeah, that's our week. And you know what? Somehow, Lil Uzi Vert dodged the worst spot, where we got Brokey by Latto running away with that. And with São Paulo by The Weeknd and Anitta, it's going to get the best of the week, I guess. Next week, not really hearing what's going to shake everything up, but I don't get the feeling much new is coming, and we might have a bit of breathing room before the holidays. I mean, I wouldn't complain about that. But until then, I'm Mark. You're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse. And I'll see you next time.